All right, last night I saved someone's life, and I want to talk about something that I don't talk about on this channel very often, which is for lack of a better word, the existence of miracles. And so just stay with me because I've got three stories that I want to tell that sort of make me wonder about really big questions about how the universe is all stitched together, things that I can't explain, and maybe you can explain it. All right, so last night I was out with a friend, and we were sort of out at a restaurant. I came home and there was this thunderstorm, and the first thing I noticed is it was my cat, a little black cat named Ichabod. He was on the front porch, and he was all puffed up, and he didn't like the thunder. And I let him in, and then I noticed something was weird about him. He wasn't wearing his collar, which usually means the cat has gotten into a fight somewhere and dropped his collar off somewhere. Luckily, he's run into this problem before, and I put like this Apple AirTag on his collar, because like a week ago or actually it was like 3 weeks ago, he was out till like 1:30 in the morning. I was really worried about him, and I was like, I was up at night. And I was like, forget this. I am going to track you, you little animal, and find you whenever you're gone. So I have this an app on my phone where I can like find his collar, which is usually on him, and that's why he's wearing an AirTag. Okay, so it was raining, and I was like, and I looked up where it was, and it was like a block, like half a block away in the alley across the street from where I live, and I looked outside, and I was like, I don't really want to get wet. Maybe I'll just do this tomorrow. And I sort of like thought about it for a couple minutes, and I was like, no, I'll just go get the AirTag. I'll just go pick it up. I'm sure I can find it, using the GPS tracker or whatever. It says, 25 minutes ago, he was over in this alley. Okay, so I walk over there, around the block from my house, and I got my little phone, and I'm like, bing, 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 like looking for the collar, and I think it's behind this house. I'm sort of like zoning in on it. It tells me like I'm like 3 feet away or 10 feet away or whatever. And as I'm doing that, I hear out of my left ear. Sorry, I'm a little worried. Okay, so I'm a little worried when you're poking around other people's properties. I don't know everyone who lives in the neighborhood, and I'm in America. You don't really want to show up in someone's backyard because you could get the cops called on you, or maybe they will shoot you because it's America. And so I don't really want to run into another person while I'm looking for my cat's collar. So there's like a little bit of tension there, just a tiny bit. But then I hear this voice, like a big, like an and I'm like, whoa. I was like, is someone mad at me for looking through their backyard? And then I hear it again, and I look down the alley, and then, underneath one of those street lights, sort of there's a street light in the alley, and there's like a little cone of light. I see this like figure on the ground in like a white shirt, and I'm like, it's just me, I'm Scott. And I'm like, and he's like, who are you? And then I look, and I realize it's an old guy. He's like, one of my neighbors, he's like 80 some odd years old, and he's like collapsed over a box. It's like a drawer from a piece of furniture. I don't know. It's just a wood square box, and he's collapsed over, and there's a walker next to him, and he's just collapsed. He's soaked because it's been raining, and I look at him like, oh my god, and he'd fallen, and I go up to him, and I was like, oh, are you okay? And obviously he's not okay, and I roll him off the box, and I have to call my wife, and like I asked him, how long have you been there? He's been there. I've been like 45 minutes, and he's cut up, like he's messed up. And when you're old and you fall down, like this is how people die, right? No one had seen him. He'd been in this alley. He said that he'd been there for at least 45 minutes, maybe an hour. He'd been soaked. He'd been, he was stuck on this box, and it's like cutting into him. I call my wife, and we pick him up, and we get his walker, and he said, and it's hard to pick up a person who's like lost their strength, and when you get old, falls are very dangerous, right? A lot of people die because they break a hip or something. He asked me to call. He said, should we call 911? I was like, well, what do you think? And we realized that we can get him back into his house. We meet his wife, and we roll him inside. So here's the thing, like, how did that happen? Like, how did I happen to be there at that moment? Like the series of events to get me to see him, to be in this random alley that I never walked down alleys, right? The cat had to A, get a tracking collar. B, he had to get into a fight in the area that this happened. It had to fall off. I had to be able to track it. That thing lured me into this place to look for the collar. I saw this guy and I was able to help him. And thank God I was able to help this guy, because he honestly could have died. He could have died, stuck there with this, collapsed and I breathe him. He had an oxygen tank. Like, it was a bad scene for this guy. And I think about all of those series of events that led me there, because I don't usually walk down my alleys. No one really wants to walk around in the rain. Like, and I just had this idea. I was like, no, maybe I'll go get my collar. So now, could be total coincidence, right? Obviously the chain of events could be exactly what I said, and he just got really lucky. And I am fine with that being the reality. But another part of me says, it's weird. Like, it's weird that these things connected in that way, and this guy was in distress. The cat's fight happened probably, looking, because I can tell the time, last thing it pinged an iPhone, that time probably pinged in about probably 10 minutes after he was struggling. So he was in a lot of distress for a while. The cat gets in a fight randomly in this same location, and that's what lures me out. Now, I don't know what the universe is thinking. Could be total chance, but it could be like somehow that there's another thing going on in the world. And this is why I want to posit this idea of miracles. And I know that is weird for this channel, because basically most of my channel is talking about weird people who take advantage of other people using spiritual ideology and ideas of superpowers. I've written books. I wrote this book called The Enlightenment Trap, about people who promise miracles and talk about the unseen forces in the universe and how they can sort of control it. And yet there are spooky things that happen in the world. Okay, so that's my first story. And he's thankfully okay. His name is Bob. Bob, I am very happy that you're fine. Okay, so now I want to tell you a second story. It actually is from this, and it's much more personal to me. It's much more important to where I've come from. And it's another one of these instances of a miracle that's incredibly hard for me to explain because of the series of events that occurred with it. And as a note of warning, this involves not as happy an ending as my previous story, but I do think it's really important. It's probably the defining moment of my life, and for anyone who's been watching this channel a lot, it also has something to do with this tattoo that I have, and I'll get to that. All right, so this is 20 odd years ago. I was an anthropologist. I'm not yet really a journalist, and I had left my graduate school to lead this student abroad program in India. I'd lived in India for at that point 3 years. I spoke Hindi, and I was leading this program. It was called From Brahma to Buddha. 20 students between high school and college. Some actually were in college, and we were traveling, looking at the spiritual places in India. And I've studied India for a long time. I know a lot about India. It was you're going to read about my experiences in India. Those aren't that important. Anyway, we're about a month into this trip. It was with an organization called Pacific Valley Village in Pacific. It was a. I actually don't remember the name of the organization. We started off in Varanasi, which is the holy city of the dead, where people, where people go to bury their relatives, and when you bury people in this place, that you go off to moksha, nirvana, whatever, and you have a favorable rebirth. And then from there we went to Bodhgaya, which is where the Buddha attained enlightenment 2,800 years ago, sitting under the Bodhi tree. Holy site, probably the most holy site in all of Buddhism. And so we go there, and we're going to do this 10-day silent meditation retreat in the Tibetan tradition. and we're studying. At that point, I'm the leader of this group of 20 people. But for the meditation section, I'm also just with the students. I'm also meditating in silence, and like someone else is teaching us the laws of the universe according to the Tibetan school of Buddhism. It's this place called the Root Institute. It's well known. It's like sort of a Western facing Buddhism. Like, it teaches to Westerners. It's part of the Foundation for the Preservation of the Mahayana Tradition, if you care about that acronym, the FPMT. Okay, so we're on this 10-day silent meditation retreat. And there's one of my students, she's like she's like the A student, right? She puts in the maximum effort and everything. Very, very driven, smart woman. We're going to call her Emily. And so Emily is sitting there, and she's like really into these meditations. We're sitting in front of this monk. She's a Swiss German monk, shaved head, robes, whole deal, big statue of the Buddha. We're in this meditation room. There's meditation pillows. And for the whole week, we're not supposed to say anything except listen to these spiritual lessons. And I, if you've noticed, I talk a lot, and I am not someone who loves intensive silences, and I struggle so much to like maintain this silent stuff. But Emily, who sits like in front of me to the right, most of the time. She's done yoga for, she's like 21 years old. She's done yoga for years. And she's really into the spiritual side, and you can tell that she loves it. So she's sitting there like in perfect lotus position the whole time. And I'm just like, having trouble. Anyway, we have some nice meditation experiences. Now, at the end of this, we're not really talking at all. I don't know what anyone's thinking, but at the end of that meditation retreat, after 7 days in this, she's been writing in her journal. I've been writing in my journal. Everyone's like journaling and like coming up with their thoughts. And on the last day, there's this rainstorm. And and this is where like the responsibility handoff happens, where I go from being the counselor, counselor, then to the student being taught by the monks and doing all the monk things, then reassuming my role as the camp director, the program director. There's another director with me too. Her name's Stephanie, and we. We have to get to the next spot. We're going to go to Dharamsala, which is like way in the north where the Himalayas are. And I'm going to we're going to maybe meet the Dalai Lama. We're going to do some more Tibetanese stuff. We're gathering people up into the train, to stage our way to go to the train. And there's this torrential downpour. We're like, it's chaos. It's chaos. And I see Emily, and she's like sort of off to the rest of the group. She hasn't been talking. People can talk now. Everyone's like, can't wait to talk. And she's sort of off to the side, and she's like sort of meditating. And I go up to her. I was like, hey, how you doing? Are you like, what's going on? Like, you seem a little off. And she's like, this was the most wonderful experience I've ever had. I'm just processing, which I think is a good sign, but like, it's a little weird because she's also meditating in the rain. It's raining on her. And, but we got things to do. We need to gather up. I'm like, okay, well, just be sure that you're ready to get on the train with us. And then we gather the students together, and I'm like, what's going on with Emily? I think one of the other counselors goes talks to Emily a little bit, and we head off toward the train station, getting all these tuk-tuks, these rickshaws, the auto rickshaws, and we're driving off to the train station. Now, a thing you need to know about Bodhgaya. At that time, it's in the state of Bihar. It's this pretty rural area of India. And at that time, there's a big law and order problem. We're talking like, not like a little law and order problem, like in the bad side of like Chicago or something. We're talking about like bandits on the streets with rifles who will, shoot you and to take your money. Like really bad, sort of paramilitary police trying to fix the situation. It's a little dicey at that point in Bihar's history to be just traveling around the world at night. In fact, like while we were on the meditation retreat, there was a terrorist attack in Varanasi, the place we had just been, and one of our program assistants was present at that terrorist attack, where a bomb had gone off at a train station. It was set off by Lakshari Toiba, which is a terrorist group. I think they were also involved in the Mumbai attacks. It was bad, and the person next to her had died in that attack. okay, this is bad, right? I need to paint this history because it is a little important. So we're on the road to the train station, and we get a message on the way there that the train has derailed on the way to Bodhgaya, which is the train we're going to take to Delhi and then off to Dharamsala. And obviously we're not going to be able to get on a train that night. So as we sort of like pull a Yui and go back to the Root Institute, we're like, hey guys, we have to stay here another night. No one's getting out of Bodhgaya. Is it cool? And they graciously said, yeah, sure, you can stay here at the meditation retreat. Now this is all set up for the hard stuff. Okay, so that night, we all have like another meal. We're setting up. I'm going to bed early, and the students are hanging out in the Gongpa, the temple where we had been doing those meditations. And they're like, they've been silent for 10 days, so they're like talking and talking and talking and talking. They're so, they just want to talk about their spiritual experiences and enlightenment and nirvana and bliss and all these things that we were learning about. And Emily, meanwhile, is sort of sitting in a corner, still journaling and writing. At like, I guess like 2 a.m, from what I've pieced together, maybe 1 a.m, she sort of walks away from the group and sort of disappears. No one really thinks about it. People go to bed, but she climbs up to the roof of the meditation place. And places her journal down, and this is really hard. She jumps off the roof. She wraps a cloth like a scarf around her face, and she jumps off, and she lands on the pavement head first. And this is probably about 15 feet from where I'm sleeping. And she lands there, and actually, I don't think anyone hears it. And then at 3 a.m, another one of the students comes upon her, and everyone gets woken up. Emergency response, not personnel. It's really just the directors here, and I don't have any medical experience. One of the other people does, and there's CPR, and there's things going on. I'm out there, and my first experience, the first feeling I have is like, this is not happening. This is unreality. Like, I cannot believe that this is happening. I'm not going to describe the body part, but it's bad. And we're like, well, what happened? How did this occur? And there's this transition, right? There's this notification of the parents. There's like, oh my God, now I've seen a person going from a live person to a dead person. There's a mystery. We need to figure out what's going on. And I'm not going to be handling the body part of things. I'm going to be handling the mystery part of things. And, their police arrive, or they're sort of sent on the way. And so the first thing that I do is locate her journal, and I read it. And especially the ending, and what it appears to have happened is, the moment she gets into the center, she started her writings get really weird. Like she really believes that she's gotten sort of enlightened. The last words in her journal are, "I am a bodhisattva. All I have to do is give up parts of I'm going to go through a transition. I'm enlightened. If I die now, I will have a favorable rebirth." And there's a lot of weird, a lot of stuff in it. And I wrote about that stuff in this book. This whole story is here, but I'm basically going to retell it. You don't need to go buy the book. It's just I did write it. The things that are confusing here, they're written down in a much more articulate way in the book. So what I realize is that she had gone sort of crazy on this trip. She thought that she was this enlightened being. She had achieved moksha, nirvana, or whatever, and then she had died. And now we were going to be responsible for her body. Now, here's where, then this is terrible. This is sort of a defining moment of my life. But remember, I'm also responsible for the lives of these other students, these other 20-ish students who are on this trip. And I have no idea how to deal with that, right? I have no idea how to counsel. I'm 26 26 or 27 at that time. I'm young. I'm trying to like figure out how we keep everyone else safe, because, maybe the other kids are also potentially crazy. And, we gather them up into like one of the upper rooms. And as we are sitting there talking with these kids, in through the door of this, again, we're talking, it's like 4 a.m, very early, right? In through the door walks this guy, and he's Australian. And his name is Rick. And he says, I just got off the bus. I was going from Varanasi. I was going to Nepal. But I was like, why not just get off the bus in Bodhgaya? And I ended up at the Root Institute. He arrived at 11 p.m. that night. And he says, and I'm a suicide counselor from Australia, and I'd love to help. And wow. Yes, you can help. Thank you. I don't know how you showed up here, but you can help. And like, he starts talking about like, the things that the kids need to know about what might have happened, right? And like to contextualize it. I was way out of my depth, and this guy with expertise shows up, speaks the language. Great. And we're having this sort of like group heart to heart. I'm reading the journal. We're also trying to figure all this out. So overstretched on resources, and he shows up. Okay. So then we're talking, and we counseling them for a few hours. At this point, the body has been taken off to the Gaia Medical Institute. The other counselors with the body, Stephanie, the police are somehow involved. I'm still with the students. And then as we're talking, Rick is there, the suicide counselor, and is helping the kids deal with this. And then also through the door, this is so baffling to me, okay? Again, we're talking 4:30 in the morning, so right after Rick is there. In through the door walks a woman who I studied Hindi with in the University of Wisconsin-Madison. In my grad school program, her name is Dumcho. She is also a Buddhist nun, Tibetan Buddhist nun. She walks through the door. I have not seen her in 2 years at least. And she walks through the door, and she was there in this bandit-ridden workplace of India. I have no connection with this woman other than Hindi class, and we were friendly. She walks in the door, and she starts talking about how in Buddhism this is not a good thing. She starts counseling these kids. She is there. She's present. And she's from my past, and she just shows up, and it's like it's a little small miracle. I'm so unbelievably grateful. Okay, we're not done. The police are there. They get there. The kids are being taken care of by these experts, and I'm so lucky. And we, the cops come, and I speak Hindi. I understand the Indian legal system much better than anyone else in this organization. And their first assumption is that this is a murder, right? They're investigating a murder because, the wounds are very extensive, and I'm talking to, I think his name was Vinay, they're like, we want you, since you understand what's going on, to help identify the stuff on the body and like help us with it. We're gonna have to transport her from Bodhgaya to Delhi, from Delhi to her home in the United States. And at this point I've read the whole journal, and it's very clear to me that she had sort of gone, she had been so taken with this idea of enlightenment that she had to stop that feeling that she was feeling in that enlightened experience, and stop it right there. So we go, I take this, trip with the cops through the bandit invested thing, and they've got their submachine guns, and we go to the Gaia Medical College, and that's in the city of Gaia. Bodhgaya is the spiritual hub. Gaia City is the actual municipal center. We go to Gaia at the medical college. Her corpse is there, and I have to sit with it for a few hours as we sort of go through bureaucracy. And I have my cell phone, and I'm calling, everyone. We're notifying everyone, and there's a lot of logistics all of a sudden. And remember, this is India, right? And in India, it gets hot. We're talking like 105-ish degrees at that time period, and hot things and bodies don't mix well. I'll leave it at that. And we know that we need to like get her cooled. We get ice. Like there's a lot of like logistics that happen when someone leaves their body and leaves it in the care of other people. And again, I'm still overwhelmed. 27-year-old Scott doesn't know what's going on. And as I'm sitting there with she's right in front of me. like we're in this entry chamber into the hospital. And she's like, she's right there. We have to get an autopsy. We have to, there's certain procedural things that need to happen from a legal perspective for how to deal with a possible murder, right? They think it might be a murder. Maybe someone pushed her. They're asking about enemies and things like that. Okay, so this is hard. It's hard. And then my phone rings. And, okay, my phone rings. And on the other line is Joel. All right, you don't know Joel, but Joel went to Kenyan with me at college, and he also was one of these guys who spent a lot of time in India. He speaks much better Hindi than me. And he's like, Scott, I saw on Facebook that you were traveling around, India. I had no idea he's in India. And I'm in Bodhgaya right now, and I guess I missed you, but I'm on my way out. I forget where he was headed. He was going out of Bodhgaya. Bodhgaya, bandit-infested place, rural, not near anything, India. He's like, I'm on the bus, I'm heading out, but like I just wanted to say, and I was like, Joel, please get off the bus and come to Gaya Medical College right now. I need your help. And Joel responds, and he does. He jumps out of the bus. He tells him to stop, and like I think 30 or 40 minutes later, he's there with me, helping in this situation, and it was all right. So here's the synchronicity thing that I'm getting, because I talked about the cat and how the cat tracking collar fell off, and then that led me to be able to discover this guy who was in serious pain, could have died, and I helped rescue him. Right, these three people should not have been in Bodhgaya by any sort of stretch of the imagination, right? Like it's weird they were there, and it's weird they were there at this moment when I needed them. And the very short, you can read about the whole story in the Enlightenment Trap, right? But basically, we with all of us, we all managed to bring her back to Delhi, and from Delhi she gets returned to the United States. And the police investigation, murder charges don't actually get filed because it wasn't. And everything sort of sorts out, but it happened because these people were there. And why were they there? Like, there's no reason in my mind, because I didn't know any of these people would be in Bodhgaya, but how did they show up in a moment of crisis? Right? It wasn't randomly meeting them in Bodhgaya. They happened to see it at a restaurant, or randomly seeing them in Delhi, or running into a friend when it made you feel good. Now, these were both crises, and they happened, and fate, the sinews of the universe had come together and allowed them to be there. It could be total mundane coincidence. But that's not what I feel it was. I think that there was some organizing structure in the universe that had this happen. And so for those who, I said I'd describe my tattoo. The tattoo says Delhi is far away. Hanuz Dili dur ast. That's Persian. It's a saying in India that means a lot of different things. Usually, if Delhi is the center of civilization, you are not near it. For me, I had to transport her body to Delhi, and this is the moment where I learn about death and the reality of death. As a 27-year-old Scot, I learned about death, and we brought her home. And this, in many ways, this is the organizing moment of my whole life. My book about organ trafficking comes from this moment. All the work on cults I have come out of this moment, because there's this tension between an eye towards mystical reality, the things we can't know, and also the hard-nosed reality of bodies and heat, and how we need to deal with them in a responsible way. I'm torn in two different directions in my life because of this event. Okay, so that's two stories, and I have one more about miracles that I probably have 6 more that I could talk about, things that I can't explain but are, I think, important. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about what I think it all means. The next story, probably I think it was 4 years ago. I was on the Middle Fork of the Salmon River in Idaho. I'd gotten this amazing opportunity to do a rafting trip for a week in one of the most pristine parts of nature in the world. I was with these awesome people, and we're going to be rafting down the river. It is an adventure, and I'm very excited to be there. I'm with my wife and some other people that I know. and we're rafting down the river. And, I grew up on the water. I'm a very good swimmer. I'm very comfortable with boats, but I don't really know much about rivers. I'm not a river guy. And we're having like just a nice, good time on the river. But, I'm also like, part of me is like, I like me also having an adventure like, I don't know. One of the things when I sailed growing up, like I liked having a boat capsize, like a sunfish, not like a real serious boat. And then you can flip it back over because that adds a little bit of tension and adventure. And as I'm, paddling, I remember thinking to myself, no one had fallen off or and like, there's no hint of adventure, like extra, like no peril. There was no peril at any point in this. And it would have been cool if some peril happened a little bit at some point. I remember having this thought in my brain, and maybe you see where this is going. Or so after like 3 or 4 days in the river, we have these inflatable kayaks, and I'm like, oh cool, I'll go kayak today. I'll kayak for a little bit. We have my helmet on and my life jacket, and we're kayaking, and as I'm kayaking, I see like a little like ripple or something, like a rock or something, and I'm sort of navigating around it, and I've seen people like sort of like play in the water, ride waves and in waves, right? And I'm sort of like playing a little bit. Anyway, long story short, I hit a rock and fall off my kayak and get knocked under the water and held under the water. And I'm all of a sudden going from like having fun to boom, I'm underwater, and I'm like, whatever, like, I know I'm underwater, but I'm going to pop right back out. What I did not realize was that there are things called hydraulics. Okay, if you think about a whirlpool is on the surface and it's spinning, you get sucked down. A hydraulic is where there's a rock and the water's going over the rock and it curls like that. And I had gotten pushed off this rock and I got sucked into the hydraulic next to like a big boulder. And I'm like here, and the water's pushing me back against the rock. And I don't know this. All I know is that I'm underwater and I should be popping out, but I'm not popping out. And, my life jacket bobs me up for a second. I get a breath of air and I go down. I'm probably underwater for like a minute at least. And I'm like, oh, this is not fun anymore. This is scary. After a little bit of disorientation, I'm okay with cold water. Obviously, I've written books about cold water. I'm okay with holding my breath. I've written books about breath work. And I'm pretty lucky that I've had those experiences. And, eventually after probably bobbing up 4 or 5 times, and then it holds you down for like 15 seconds and then bobs me back up, potentially dangerous. I sense that there's a rock next to me that's not moving and it shouldn't be there. And I push off the rock. Which is actually not what you're supposed to do. If you get caught in a hydraulic, you're supposed to curl up into a ball, and then that will somehow pop you out. I didn't know that. Anyway, I pushed off the rock, and I popped out, and I lived. and one of the other guys who was, managing the rafting guide had seen me go down, and he was like running like Superman along the bank, and he throws a rope in a bag, and it lands near me, and I get the rope, and he drags me ashore, and I live, and it's great. My wife is very happy. She's right down. She saw me go down. She just didn't see me come up, and she's very excited that I'm alive. And okay, so this is the other story, and this is a little different than the other ones, because the other ones were like miracles that happened in perilous moments, and in this one where I'd almost died, I realized immediately that I had tempted fate, right? The day before, I was like, I think someone should fall off because it'd be fun. And I really do feel this. I feel like the river gods heard me and gave me exactly what I was looking for. And sometimes, I kid you not, even now, I think I really could have died. Really, really could have died. And I think to myself, wait, am I dead? Is this all an imagination? Like, is this all my afterlife flashing before me of the life that could have been, and I actually died in that river? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Probably not. Probably I got a little message. But I feel like I tempted fate, and fate was like, hit me. Okay, so these are the three. I have more stories, but these are 3 stories that I think about when I think about fate and how the world works and the mysteries of things that are unseen. And I have a personal belief, right? I have a personal belief for how the universe is all stitched together. You could have different insights. I mean, if you're a Christian, you might have an idea. If you're, a Muslim or Mormon or whatever, you can have different ideas. For me, I feel like there's, to go back to Emily's death, right? We have her thinking that she's a bodhisattva, and bodhisattva is a capital B angel, like a big B, a big A, right? Big A angel, essentially. If you're a Tibetan Buddhist scholar, I'm sorry, I'm butchering some things to simplify it, but it's like a big deity that comes in there. And she thought that she had arisen to that deity form. Now, for me, what I think about that word bodhisattva, like maybe the angels or the bodhisattvas are not the capital B ones, but maybe they're the lowercase b ones, like who are the people who the universe has stitched together and presented in times of need through mechanisms that I cannot describe. Whether, like how is my cat involved with the AirTag, involved with the having the fight in exactly the right place, and my own desire to go out there. Those are all sort of really weird things that occurred for me to be able to help this guy, right? I helped him, and in that I was the person that he needed, right? And the same thing happened in Bodhgaya, bandit invested country. These people helped me out and helped stabilize a very, very dangerous situation, and also my own tempting of fate. This is not a bodhisattva part, but this is like don't mess with things. If you don't fuck around and find out, right? If you mess with fate, maybe that fate is going to give you what you had asked for. I don't know how it all. It would be hubris of me to fully explain this to you, but I think that there is something that connects consciousness about something in another realm, another dimension. What is a dimension? Like another axis on which fate plays out that we don't totally understand. And I don't think it happens necessarily at like the geopolitical level. I don't necessarily think that it happens in the very biggest echelons of how the world is going, because I don't really feel like the world's going in a great direction. But I do feel like on the individual level, there's something out there that is more than what we give it. Now, again, I could be totally wrong. It could be that it's all chance, and these are just my mind stitching together a meaning, a conspiracy, if you will, as some sort of like thread that connects it all together, and my own supernatural belief and explanation for it. That's valid. That could totally be it, but I just don't feel that way. I feel like there's something more to life and to consciousness and to how we're put together to experience something in life, and I've had glimpses of it, and the glimpses come in sometimes traumatic moments, but in pivotal moments. I know that I wouldn't be the journalist that I am today if what had happened to Emily hadn't occurred. Like I wouldn't be doing the things that I'm doing on YouTube. I wouldn't have written the books that I've written. I wouldn't have done any of these things if what had happened to Emily hadn't actually happened. So I'm partially grateful to her, even though what had happened to her was a true tragedy, and that I don't think needed to have happened, but it did. Probably would have traded where my life is now to have her life go forward, but that's not the way it crumbles cookie-wise. Okay. If you want to know, like, I'd love to know your thoughts down below. Like, if you have thoughts about this, maybe you've had some instances of synchronicity like this. Maybe you have explanations or whatever. I may not agree with them, but you can tell me down below. I have some other stories like this too that I could share. And I do find that one thing that's like really interesting is that we can have a skeptical mindset. Like if you've looked at this channel, you know that I'm very skeptical of charlatans, and I've written about scam charlatans and scam gurus and people who use spirituality to their own bad ends. And like that stuff's all real. And yet we can also be open to the mysteries of the universe that we don't understand. Like there's no reason why you can't have both. You can't have real cool things going on in the world that we can't explain, that are out there, and people who take advantage of that, and also to sit in the wonder of it. And sometimes I like to sit and wonder. And I'm really glad that my neighbor is alive. Okay, that's my story for today. Thanks for listening. Until next time, this was Scott Carney Investigates, or talks about stuff.